Today, we'll walk through how developers can build apps, integrate with data and services, and govern at scale with the Power Platform. Power Apps is the market leader in low-code, no-code tools. Today, we're going to use Cineplex, a leading media and entertainment company in Canada. Cineplex have over 100 makers on the platform and have driven savings of more than 30,000 hours annually from automation developed on the platform. Let's get started. Where most developers start, right here in Azure. I can click to try the Power Apps developer plan, confirm my details, and I'm taken straight to Power Apps. I land in a developer environment. It's got all of the capabilities in it that we would expect with Power Apps, including all of Dataverse, Power Automate, the ability to work with connectors, both out of the box and custom. In a few simple clicks, our developer has a cloud-based platform ready for development. A new developer today can already get started in a few ways, by connecting to an existing data source, starting with a blank table, or even uploading an image or Figma file of their app. Last year, we introduced the ability to get started with natural language. So we're going to say we want to create an app to manage movie events, rooms, and staff. We've taken our natural language creation to the next level. Copilot will now suggest a rich data model to support my app and present it in an interactive ERD. I can see the details of each table, the sample data it's proposed, and make changes either through Copilot or directly on the ERD. I can ask Copilot to suggest additional columns and tables, and ask it to add a table to manage our food packages. I can move between conversation and direct changes seamlessly, updating my package column to a choice field. And lastly, I'll ask Copilot to add a lookup for me between the tables. And now I can go ahead and create my app. In a matter of seconds, I've created a multi-table application, interacted with a rich ERD of schema, and made some quick updates, all based on a natural language description of what I wanted to build. Copilot has guided me through the process to get my app started. It's created a multi-screen app for me to work over my new tables it created in Dataverse, as well as a welcome screen. Copilot has gotten me off to an amazing start. Now I'm going to work on customizing this app to meet a few other requirements and align my branding. I can go ahead and add a new screen leveraging the out-of-the-box templates to quickly add a screen to manage approval requests. I'm able to pick from my existing tables, create a new one, or connect my app to one of over 1,400 connectors to first and third-party sources. I'm going to go ahead and connect it to events, and Copilot again is leaning in to help by suggesting the more relevant fields for this form. I could customize, but these suggestions are great, so I'm good to go. The app that's been produced is responsive by default, and I can preview the form factor of different devices directly in the studio. We've made a series of updates to how responsive apps are built, simplifying it for makers through default layouts and containers to drive responsive behavior by default. Now let's jump ahead. I've spent a bit more time on this app changing some layouts, using drag and drop, low-code expressions, and our rich modern out-of-the-box controls. Let's step through some of those changes. Because my app was built from the beginning as a responsive app, it continues to respond to form factor even as I've been through and updated the styling. Adding images, as a developer I've benefited from responsive layouts and containers to produce a great-looking app. Now let's go and update the theme. As well as introducing modern controls, we've also updating theming to provide easy yet flexible custom themes for makers. From the new theming pane, I can create a new theme, select the primary color, and Power Apps will generate a palette of colors and give me an interactive preview of how they're going to look for my controls. Looks good. I can go ahead and save it and apply to my app. Working in Power App Studio, I have the flexibility to work with controls and formulas directly on the canvas. I'm also able to use Copilot to help me make updates to the app. This can help for time-consuming tasks, or if I'm unsure of which control or function to use. Using natural language, I can make simple requests like, make this form light gray. It understands the context from the app, the form I'm referring to, and is able to update the properties. In the conversation history with Copilot, I can see the controls and specific properties it's updated, making its updates transparent and giving me the option to undo them. I can get Copilot to make styling updates, add buttons and screens, as well as more complex requests to add logic to controls in my app. In this case, driving the behavior of my submit and cancel buttons. With a few simple instructions, we've added a new screen and submit options for my form. Now I want to add a new screen to send emails to my app. I could use a template as I did earlier as a starting point, but let's say I wasn't sure. I can use Copilot. Simply tell Copilot what I'm trying to do, and I've got a new screen to send emails added to my app. Copilot also allows me to undo the change or ask more detailed. How do questions leverage the power of Bing without having to leave the development environment? Taking a look at my new screen, I can see it's included a formula to send the email, but I'm not completely sure what this PowerFX is doing. So directly in the formula bar, I can ask Copilot to explain it to me. I get quick, easy to understand description of how this expression is leveraging variables, sending an email, and resetting controls. I could even copy and paste this directly in as a comment in my code. And while it's awesome that Copilot was able to help me, it's important to remember that PowerFX is not only the low-code language of the Power Platform, but an open-source language with a growing and engaged community to leverage as well. Let's jump back to my app. Copilot doesn't just help me create new content or explain. It can also help with time-consuming tasks like bulk edits. Let's tell Copilot to update all the labels on the screen to a new font. It's updated the fonts, told me what it did, and again given the option to undo. I'm in control throughout the process. Now let's put some finishing touches on my app. I don't need the time on these entries. So using Copilot, I'm going to simply give an example of how my data should look. It will suggest some PowerFX, and I can apply to my data. Copilot again saving me time in development by helping at the right times, in context as I build my app. Let's take a look at one more example. I'm going to include the initials of the staff member in this badge control. Directly in the formula bar, I can start typing a comment of exactly what I need it to do. Just like in Copilot, I see it generating a type ahead of my code without me needing to do anything. Copilot proposes the PowerFX I need, and I click Accept or just hit Tab. The code is added. My comment is there as well to help me next time, and I can see the badge has been updated to show the staff member's initials. Copilot is working alongside me, leveraging the context of my app to help me build tables and apps, understand and write code, and style my app. But Copilot isn't the only one there to help. My team is too. Building apps is now multiplayer. Multiple developers can work on the same app at the same time in the same style as Office. I can see who is in the app and also where they are editing. Let's make some updates to our facilities management screen. With multiple people working, coordinating is important. I can use comments to mention others for help or to leave context inside the app. This is a familiar pattern to Office users. I can tag my fellow developer Jessica to help update fields. They will receive a notification with the comment and a link to edit the app. Dividing up authoring allows for faster completion of the app and even to leverage specific skills where they are needed. I see Jessica editing this form. She is adding a field to show the visual layout for each of our rooms. I can easily see what she is working on. At the same time, I can also make changes. I'll add a button to help us request cleaning for our rooms. If needed, I'll update several of the properties and switch the icon. Jessica can see my changes too. They will be merged and also reflected in real time. But this is not just about the visuals. We can also divide and conquer on the PowerFX code throughout the app. I see that Jessica is working on the button to add an expression to call a Power Automate flow to notify cleaning staff. This is super. I can help contribute as well by adding some code to surface a success banner for this button when it's selected to give the user feedback that the message has been sent. Let's test out the changes that Jessica and I made by selecting the button. It works. Allowing multiple people to edit at once through co-authoring will supercharge how fast customers are able to build and deliver their applications. So far, we've been focused on our Canvas user experience, enabling developers to build custom UI with extreme flexibility. In Power Apps, though, I'm able to complement this with model-driven, leveraging the same underlying assets to build a rich application with dynamically generated experience based on common data and logic. In this case, it's perfect to build an app to administer apps for the Cineplex head office. I can quickly get started from Power Apps and simply point to my existing solution, leveraging all that great work I've already done. With a few clicks, I've got a responsive web application running over Dataverse to help me administer over my event management. I can continue to customize further with complete control over the forms, grids, navigation, and commands used in the app. I can also quickly add rich page types like dashboards and even reports from Power BI. Leveraging Power BI, I've been able to pull in rich analytics over our event pipeline directly into my app. Now let's take a look at some of the rich end-user experiences developers benefit from when using Power Apps. Jumping into our event administration app we just built, without the developer having to do anything. As an end user, I get a responsive modern app with rich search and filtering, integration with Power BI and Excel to work with my data, and Copilot to make me more productive. Let's create a new event. You'll notice as I open the form, Copilot is suggesting values for fields based on how I've been using the app. Without any work as the developer, all my users benefit from Copilot suggesting values and saving time. Users get clear information that these are AI-generated and get full control over what they choose to use or not use. I can accept Copilot suggestions individually or all at once for my form. Similar to how Copilot supported me throughout the development experience, it's also part of my app. Again, without the developer building an AI model, Copilot is here to answer questions about data and help me navigate the app. I can ask Copilot questions about my data, getting quick insights that would have typically taken a query or report to answer. In this case, I can ask a question about events that haven't yet paid their deposit. I get a quick natural language response, and I can even ask Copilot to show me data that answers my question, generating dynamic UI to show me the reservations without a deposit. Jumping back to our event app, I can even use Copilot to generate more detailed or creative content, not just filling in a form. Here, I can use Draft with Copilot to create a quick description of the event that's needed. Just like users are already familiar with in Outlook or Word, Copilot drafts my content, lets me adjust the tone and length, and then add it to my form. Everything we just seen came as part of the core user experience. I didn't need to do anything as a developer. But that doesn't mean I can't customize it if I want to. Let's take a look at how I can use Microsoft Copilot Studio to customize this experience. In MCS, I see my Cineplex Copilot, add knowledge such as the Cineplex website, or by leveraging a connector, I can even build specific skills to find data or perform actions using a visual designer. Once I've made my changes, I simply connect it to my application to replace the standard Copilot. And now as I jump into my app, one can ask questions which leverage knowledge from sources outside my app, with complete control of how to manage the conversation on top of the built-in capabilities of Copilot. We've talked about building responsive apps. Let's take a look at how to build apps for mobile in more detail. Power Apps is the best way to build enterprise mobile applications. These applications can render natively on devices, leverage device capabilities, and go offline with different connectivity, as well as be deployed to their end users as a custom branded applications to their managed app stores. For Cineplex, they want to enable their event workers to go to a space, look up how the room needs to be set up appropriately for the event. Let's add the barcode scanner to help them scan inline to look up the right room number, so they don't have to spend time typing in the name. In Power Apps, we have out-of-box device capabilities including mixed reality controls, artificial intelligence, barcode scanning, microphone, camera, and so on. Today, we're using the barcode reader, which will let us scan a barcode and use that output to filter the list of gallery items to the right event that we have in that space. What this does is when we get scanned, we'll use the value of the scanned barcode. This will filter the gallery accordingly. We also want to take this app offline so that the user can work even without connectivity, which might happen as they wander around the theater. If we go into the general settings, we'll see the ability to turn it offline with single click. If I needed more granular control, I can go to our offline profile. We can change the profile as needed to filter to a particular event, type of event, or just for that user. Power Apps also enables you to wrap applications, which lets you deploy them as a custom branded icon on your home screen that individual managed and deployed to our managed app stores. We include a wizard to make this process as easy as possible for users, where you can just select the apps want, and we'll walk you through the steps you need to deploy it and give you the APK-AB or IPA files that you need to deploy this to your store. We also help with signing using a key vault and registering the application and output. Now let's jump to our mobile device and take a look at our app. I get a custom icon and branded loaded experience for my app. I can leverage native controls throughout the application, device capabilities to bring a rich, native experience to mobile. I can also use Copilot directly from my app. One can click the Copilot icon and use the same customized Copilot experience we showed earlier. Using voice, I can ask, "When is my next event?" And Copilot is able to get the details quickly without me even having to type. We're innovating with Copilot at a phenomenal pace, but since its launch in early 2023, Copilot has already been used by over 330,000 organizations, including 3M, Toyota, EY, and PG&E. Makers using Copilot in Power Apps used 88% fewer clicks and were 60% faster when building apps than those who didn't. Copilot is already changing the way apps are built and the types of apps end users expect. Core to our approach to Copilot is around trust and responsible AI. A customer's data doesn't leave their Microsoft Cloud tenant and isn't used to train our models. Now let's take a look at how I can build an external website or portal. In this example, let's build an external website for Cineplex to manage their customer signups. As I land in the portal, I can start using Copilot by describing the website I'm building, and Copilot will jump in with recommendations for layouts and what to include in my site. Copilot helps me throughout the development process by suggesting content, creating images, and writing code. Now, directly from the studio and can start editing my site. Just like when building an app for my employees, I get inline and contextual support from Copilot. I can use Copilot to add images or update content within my site. Let's jump ahead after I've spent some time styling my site, and I can jump straight into a code view, just like I did before. In VS Code, I can see the code of my site and ask Copilot to start making changes. I can take the code suggested by Copilot and leverage it directly in my site. Now let's take a look at how we can bring logic into our apps. As a maker, I can use a visual designer to add logic and rules to be enforced at runtime and on the server. We support business rules, workflows, and guided business process flows out of the box. For this example, we'll look at using PowerFX to add logic. In our app, we want to add some validation to the date field for our showroom request. I could go ahead and use PowerFX right here in the designer to add validation, but instead I'm going to use low-code plugins. This allows me to create reusable bits of logic I can then consume across the Power Platform. I'm creating a new plugin to validate the date for the event is in the future. Once I've saved it and applied it to my table, I see it immediately put into effect into my app. Now, just to show the reusability across the Power Platform, let me quickly jump over to a flow. I get the same message and a model-driven app. From one plugin of PowerFX, I'm able to make sure my data is valid and consistent across the platform. Let's also create a new plugin to help identify the new free date for an event. In this case, I don't need it to trigger on a field or table event. Instead, I'll be able to trigger it from the UI. Now back in my app, I've added a new button to call my logic and set the event date to the next free date. Now we'll look at how we can add different business logic to the app. We already looked at the use of PowerFX early in the demo, which is a great way to build live business logic into your app. Now we'll look at how you can use complex multi-step business processes using Power Automate. In the Cineplex app, we are already using Power Automate flows for some of the app's tasks. Here we see there is a button that allows the user to request cleaning staff assistance for a room. I can use the inline Power Automate experience to view the flow, and here we can see what it does. It takes input from the Power App context, creates an adaptive card, posts the information to a Teams channel, and generates an approval request. This is all done asynchronously and does not hold up the user experience for the multi-step process to execute, allowing makers to offload complex business logic using the over 1,400 connectors to Power Automate. We are also using Power Automate to integrate legacy applications through desktop flows. Cineplex's facilities repair process uses an application that runs only on Windows. Desktop flows can fully automate the creation of the repair requests right from inside the Power app. Here we see in Power Automate Desktop the repair request being successfully created in the legacy system. Power Automate Desktop flows support a wide variety of actions, allowing you to automate systems that don't have modern automation APIs available. Desktop flows now also supports PowerFX, as well as having a built-in Copilot to guide you through building your automation. Power Automate flows can also be triggered by changes to the Dataverse tables associated with the Power app. Let's use the natural language to flow capabilities of Power Automate to create a flow that sends me an email every time a new staff member is added to the application. As we can see, Copilot for Power Automate is able to quickly translate my natural language description into a workflow. We few clicks to confirm the connection details. I'm now in the Power Automate Designer and ready to finalize the last few details. After entering the parameters that I want my flow to use, such as what should go in the email, I'm then able to save and execute the flow. From within Power Apps, I'm able to add logic with visual designers, use PowerFX to build local and reusable logic across the platform, and leverage Power Automate to automate processes across cloud and local endpoints. Let's take a look at how we can connect to data and other services from our apps. Starting right from my app in Studio, let's set up a connection to upload contracts to Dropbox. I start by adding a button, and then I can browse through the over 1,400 out-of-the-box connectors to data and services. I can use out-of-the-box connectors to work with data from SAP, Workday, Oracle, and more. If there isn't an out-of-the-box connector, I can create a custom one as well. Once I pick my connector, I authenticate with Dropbox to ensure my permissions are reflected when I use my app, and then I can work with the Dropbox functions right in PowerFX to upload a PDF of my contract. This allows me to quickly and easily work with over 1,400 different sources to enrich my app with data and actions. In some cases, though, I want to synchronize data into my environment from another source. Using data flows, I can use Power Query, a tool familiar to hundreds of millions of users of Excel and Power BI to transforming data, and again use my connectors to connect to an existing source of data. I'm connecting an Azure SQL DB to pull through some event check-in data. I'll apply a quick filter to get data from the start of this month and schedule the data to synchronize hourly. Now the data is in my environment and ready to use like any other table. We've looked at connecting directly to services, as well as synchronizing data into Dataverse. Let's also take a look at virtual tables, allowing me to connect to an external data source like SQL or Salesforce and have it appear within my environment as a table, enabling me to build relationships and leverage rich model-driven functionality. In this case, I'm able to pull my building data from SharePoint, see it available as a table, and add it to the app one built earlier. I can also use virtual tables to connect to more complex and scalable data sources, such as a data lake through Fabric. Again, I'm guided to connect to my Fabric workspace, can see my raw sensor data, and can connect it to my environment, available to be used in apps, reporting, and with my existing logic. Virtual entities allow me to configure what data is available, which columns are exposed, and even allow me to customize the table and field columns. Once saved, it's ready to go. Because developers can use a common framework of connectors and tables, all of the methods we've just walked through for data and app connectivity can be used together in apps and logic, depending on the use case. Now that we're connected to our data, let's take a look at how I can use AI prompts to craft custom prompts to be leveraged in apps. I can use a template, create from scratch, or jump into one I've already been working on. I've created a simple prompt that will write a summary of an event for an input of just a customer name. And I've specified that the summary should include the date, title, and status of the event from my Dataverse table. I can even test it right in the prompt editor with some sample data. Now back in my app, just like I can consume tables, data from connectors, and AI models, I'm able to add my prompt to my app. I'll add a text box to our event screen and bind in my prompt so I can see the summary along with my event details. With a simple natural language prompt, I've built a reusable component leveraging generative AI as part of my app. With connectors, data flow, and virtual tables, I'm able to connect to data and services both in the cloud and on-premise to use in my apps, and leverage AI prompts to enrich and work with my data with generative AI. We've already seen a lot of the low-code dev experience, working within the Power Apps Studio, leveraging PowerFX and Copilot to build apps. Now we'll take a look at some of the other development tools available to Power Apps developers to build more advanced solutions. Starting again from Power Apps, let's take a quick look at the Learn content available to help me get started. Depending on my skill level, I can jump to advanced content and get access to guided learning to work with code-first dev tools, leverage Azure components, and build custom controls. Let's start with building a custom component to show persona information in my app. For this, I'm going to use the Power Apps component framework, which allows me to build custom visuals I can then consume in apps alongside the rest of my low-code components. As a developer, I'm going to start from Visual Studio. I'm using the Power Platform plugin, so I can see my IDE is already connected to my environment, aware of my components, and I've used TypeScript to build my custom UI control. I could use our command line interface with my preferred IDE, but for today, we'll stick with Visual Studio. Without leaving Visual Studio, I still have visibility into my Power Apps concepts to understand the environment and the solution. Using the command line interface, I can publish my control directly to my environment. When I return to Power Apps, the control is there and ready to be consumed in my app. Once it's in my environment, I can add it to my app like any other control. I get to benefit from responsive containers, PowerFX, and Copilot to leverage the control in my app. While we built this control in Visual Studio, PCF has a thriving community. PCF Gallery is one example of a community-led site, sharing an ever-growing catalog of components that developers can leverage for learning and directly in their apps. Now that we've made all these changes, as a developer I want to see them in source code. I want transparency, and I don't want to compromise on my existing development process because I'm using low code. I don't have to, because directly from Power Apps, I can review my changed objects and commit my changes to the repo. I get a full view directly in Azure DevOps of the changes made in my code in YAML. We've also recently brought this code view directly into the studio. I get full transparency into my app, end-to-end, regardless of if I'm working in Power Apps, my source code repo, or my preferred IDE. I can even use code to move back and forth between the IDEs. I can make a quick change to my code in Visual Studio and then paste it back right into Power Apps. This not only enables me to work in code, but to share code with my team and my community in a common open source format. Now we've created a custom UI component. Let's create a custom connector. Without leaving Visual Studio, I can create a new custom connector. I can connect to my environment, select my solution, and even establish a dev tunnel for quick testing. I've created a quick API that validates my tax ID for our staff, added a breakpoint, and published it back to Power Apps. Now if I jump back to my app, I can add my new custom connector just like I would a table, AI model, or one of more than 1,400 out-of-the-box connectors. Once I add my new connector, I use PowerFX to add it to my validation button in the app just like I would any other connector. Now if I preview my app, I see I get taken back to Visual Studio for my breakpoint. This is strongly connected experience enables developers to have a fast inner loop, work through their code in real time, and break down barriers between low and pro code. Now, let's take a look at how we could use that same code, but deploy it to run on as part of our environment rather than a standalone API. In Visual Studio, I have my logic to validate tax IDs that was previously managed by my API. I'll compile it using Visual Studio and then publish it to my environment. Once it's deployed, I can see it in my solution along with all my other assets, and it's immediately taking effect in my app. As a developer, I've been able to use tools and languages I'm familiar with, not compromise on source code visibility or transparency, and still benefit from the accelerated productivity of a low-code platform. We've built our apps. Let's get testing in place to make sure we maintain quality. Here in Power App Studio, I can launch Test Studio and record steps by simply using my app, add special logic and cases using PowerFX, and generate a test case. I could go ahead and use this directly in the studio to validate changes as I've updated my app. With the combination of point and click through my app and PowerFX, I can make sure core test paths are covered and introduce logic for variables. We can also download this test to leverage it as part of our broader test suite and test engine. I get a full view of the test case in YAML. I can edit it within Visual Studio or use it as is. Once I have my test case, I can leverage Playwright to run the test for various conditions. For this example, we're running it directly so you can see our test engine step through the recording, validating the app is performing as expected. I can see each step of my test plan being executed. Playwright will run my test and prepare results. I can also use Visual Studio to edit and expand my test results, increasing my coverage across any app in my solution. Once my tests are created, I can incorporate them into my pipelines to ensure tests are run as part of the deployment process between environments. As a developer, this allows a simple recording to scale to cover testing across multiple scenarios and be run regularly as I deploy new versions of the app. Azure DevOps gives me a clear summary of tests and lets me explore results as part of deploying my code. We've built our app. Let's talk about how DevOps are being managed. The focus on DevOps starts from day one within Power Apps. As a maker, my experience is guided to which solutions I should use, and I have the option to set my own defaults. Solution act as my container or package as I build components to be deployed across the platform. Power Apps helps me guide makers to build apps the right way from day one, ready for a production deployment. Power Platform allows me to set the right guardrails from day one. A great example is the ability for admins to set sharing limits using managed environments. As a maker, once I try to share past the admin set limit, I'm guided to instead deploy my app to a suitable and supported environment recommended by my admin. Let's jump to the admin experience and see how we're managing this at scale. From the admin portal, I can configure managed environments. This allows me to set guardrails to be enforced across the organization. In this case, we've limited how many people an app can be shared with in a non-production environment. Back to our developer, I'm guided to deploy my app to the right environment. In product, I get a clear visual of where my app is in the deployment process, and I can submit my app to get deployed. I can also jump into source control like before and see my track changes against objects in my solution to commit. As a developer, I've got clear guidance from my admin, familiar source code commits, all in a low-code environment. Let's jump over to Azure DevOps. I can see my commit, the changes planned in a familiar format. Now back to my deployment, I want to go ahead. While I have the option to schedule, I'll go ahead with it now, and as part of the process, I can add collaborators in the dev process. Copilot jumps in to help write my deployment notes, summarizing changes included in the version, not only saving me time, but improving the quality of the solution and my documentation. And now I'm ready to deploy. An approval has been sent for the deployment, including my Copilot-generated notes and the ability to jump into the source code and diff views. Once approved, the code is deployed to our production environment. As an admin, I was able to set central guidance on how solutions should be created and deployed. As a developer, I was guided in product to build my solution in the right way and deploy it to the right environment. As I step through the deployment process, I also get the benefit of checkers, validating my solution and making recommendations to improve the quality of my app. Solution Checker is part of the deployment process, giving me recommendations from a growing set of recommendations from Microsoft, ensuring my app is reliable, performant, and secure. As an administrator, I can enforce Solution Checker issues to be resolved, ensuring the quality of what gets deployed to production, not only providing guidance to developers, but applying guardrails at the right step in the process. As an admin, I can even ensure developers use manager solutions which don't allow customizations as part of the process. Even after all these controls, mistakes happen, and pipelines I can easily and quickly roll back and update to previous version. Once I redeploy, we've moved back the version in production ready for users. Let's step through how we govern and manage the Power Platform. Leveraging the Power Platform Admin Center, we get a central view of what's happening, how the platform is being used, and the ability to apply guardrails. From the Admin Center, I get visibility and control of all low-code development within my organization. Let's start by walking environment groups, giving me the ability to set policies across a group of environments within the organization. We can define rules related to sharing limits, insights, welcome content, backup retention, solution checker enforcement, and AI capabilities within the environment. Once I've saved my rule, I've ensured new low-code environments within our tenant are following guidelines. Now let's take a look at environment routing. This lets me get developers into the right environment when starting with the Power Platform. I'm able to define the criteria, the group, and where new developers will land to get started. All of my admin functions are backed by the Power Platform admin connectors, allowing admins to build custom automation, approvals, and processes based on common actions within the lifecycle of an environment. Now let's take a look at some of the more detailed admin functions. License management allows admins to see the licenses user and requested within the environment, with integration to Azure Portal ensuring users are set up correctly from day one. With the newly released Copilot Hub, admins can now see the use, impact, and governance in one holistic view across their tenant. In addition to making sure the broader tenant is governed and secure, the Power Platform offers a rich set of insights to developers and admins. As an admin, I can elevate this view to look across my environment and tenant. I can see transaction volumes, performance, and usage patterns across my low-code platform. As a maker, I can look at usage of my solution, understanding how it's used, performance, and the impact of version changes I've made. I also have the option of leveraging the out-of-the-box integration with Azure App Insights. This gives me a detailed view of how my app is functioning and the ability to understand performance issues with a clear path to resolve. We've walked through our low-code and code-first development and the tools to manage it at scale. Let's quickly touch on some of the new capabilities to help me share code across the platform as well as our community, component libraries, and the out-of-the-box templates. As an organization, I have the option to set up a catalog, bringing reusable, supportable components to my organization. Directly from Power Apps, I can publish components I've built to be available to the organization. I can customize the content and branding, and once it's available, I can search the catalog for Microsoft and organization content to include in my app. The Power Platform is designed to operate at scale. Organizations such as Zurich Insurance Group, Shell, Accenture, and Lumen operate thousands of environments and makers driving savings through scale in their organization. Now let's talk about security, critical to any application deployment. We keep security front of mind throughout Power Apps, guiding developers and supporting admins with insights to ensure the right security configuration for their deployment. Let's start with Security Hub for admins, giving insights for the environment, apps, sites, and solutions, guiding admins to make suitable security decisions from a single location. Security throughout the platform can be managed at multiple levels. Connectors leverage the security of the original data source, and for data stored within Dataverse, admins have the ability to create simple RBAC profiles over data and users. Security roles can manage not just what tables and columns can be accessed, but apply organizational filters to ensure users can only see their own or their team's data. The combination of permissions and roles gives complete flexibility to secure data used within Power Apps. Security goes beyond just the data and tables, but also ensure data and services interact in the right way. Data loss prevention policies in the platform allow admins to control which connectors can work together, how data is handled, and ensure low code can be enabled without risking the loss of data. As we look at administrators, it's not uncommon that someone may need elevated access for a period of time. Leveraging intra-role assignment, users can request administrative access which can be reviewed, approved, and managed directly within Intra. Power Apps can also manage working with data in other networks. VNet security support allows data sources to be secured and shared over a virtual network. Leveraging intra-configuration, I can enable access to virtual networks and bring SQL data from other networks directly into my application using virtual networks. From the Power Platform, I have total control over the data within the platform, how connections are managed, and the administrative process through Power Platform security controls. All of these amazing capabilities in integration, development, governance are underscored by hyperscale support for our customers and their environments. Let's talk through some of the ways environments remain healthy, scalable, and reliable. Admins and makers benefit from proactive and intelligent recommendations related to security, performance, and reliability in their apps and solutions. Advisor can identify issues, recommend actions, and enable admins and makers to resolve in a single click, ensuring assets built on the platform stay healthy and maintained. We've also recently announced Power Platform well-architected guidance, including an architectural assessment for organizations to identify improvements and recommendations related to their deployment. I can see rates and recommendations with links to actionable content for improving my low-code deployment. In addition to the insights and analytics, we provide admins, advisor recommendations, and architectural guidance. Power Platform at its core is built to scale, without the need for intervention or management of admins. It's a major benefit of leveraging a low-code platform. Power Platform is one of the biggest customers of Azure today. Let's talk through some of the techniques we use within our infrastructure to ensure customers can scale their applications and they remain reliable. Our topology is divided into 3 subunits which we call planes. Each plane represents a portion of our service with a specific purpose. The control plane is responsible for building out the infrastructure, which includes the 2 other planes, the management plane and the runtime plane. The control plane provisions all the Azure resources, builds the compute clusters, and deploys the services to these clusters. And as you probably figured, this is the first plane that is built out. The management plane is responsible for supporting all the management and administration capabilities. It hosts services like the Power Platform Admin Center, which customers use to provision and manage the Power Platform environments. Additionally, it supports discovery services which are used to find the location of the environment in the runtime plane. Finally, we have the runtime plane, which hosts the services that provide majority of the customer functionality. This is the largest plane and leverages the cell architecture where each cell is called an island. Most of your interaction with Power Platform is with services on the runtime plane like Power Apps, Dataverse, Power Automate, and more. These planes are designed to be isolated from each other, minimize risk to performance and service degradation. This scale of architecture requires zero configuration or maintenance by the customer. Let's talk about the runtime plane architecture. Before we get deeper here, the first thing to recognize is that the runtime plane and all other planes are deployed across many geographies. And within each geography, these are deployed across multiple regions. We have one or more islands in each geography. Larger geographies like North America and Europe have 10+ islands, while smaller geographies like UAE and South Africa have 1 to 2 islands each. Each island supports a subset of customers within a geography. A customer environment is fully hosted within a single island. So, let's take an example. Let's say you have an environment called My Environment in North America, and if it's hosted on Island 601, this means all components such as Dataverse, Power Apps, Power Automate, and more for this environment will be supported by services running in Island 601. Each island supports thousands of customer environments, and customer environments are automatically provisioned into an island based on the expected size of the environment and the capacity utilization on each island. This is done by the services that are running on the management plane that we discussed a few minutes ago. The islands don't have a fixed size, both in terms of the number of customers supported by the island or the Azure capacity that is provisioned for the island. Both these change over time. Again, this is dynamic scaling and maintenance that doesn't require the customer supervision. Before we go into the details on how Power Platform leverages zones, let's dig a little deeper into Azure availability zones. In Azure, we have geographies such as North America, Europe, Asia Pacific, and many more. Each geography has 1 or more regions. Most geographies today have 2 or more regions. Large geographies such as North America have several regions. A region is made of 1 or more data centers. Larger regions are zone-enabled, have multiple data centers. These data centers are grouped together into isolated zones. Each zone has independent power, cooling, and networking infrastructure, so any disruption to these only affects a single zones. This is how zones provide high availability and business continuity. As part of isolation, we reviewed the Power Platform topology with the 3 planes and islands in the runtime plane. We will take these planes and the islands and deploy them across the 3 zones with synchronous replication of data across these zones. Since the replication across the zones is synchronous, if there is any failure in a zone or loss of a zone, the customer traffic will seamlessly and automatically move to the other zones, and the customers will not see any outage. Just by building on the Power Platform, customers are benefiting from a disaster recording and replication built into the platform. In addition to synchronous replication between the zones, we will continue to have asynchronous replication to another region to provide redundancy in case of a catastrophic outages, such as a major disaster which impacts all the 3 zones. In such an event, we are able to fail over the customer workloads to the secondary region to restore the service for customers. Lastly, let's talk about how we update the software of the Power Platform. We take a different approach to software updates than other companies. Instead of moving quickly and taking risks, we prefer to move slowly and cautiously. As changes are made to the core product, they are rolled out gradually through multiple stages around the globe. Customers have the flexibility to create environments within the first release region to preview and experiment with upcoming changes, as well as run their automated tests before an updated version reaches their region. Power Platform has unmatched scale, backed by Azure and enterprise-grade architecture to ensure customer applications are reliable, scalable, and support their mission-critical workloads. Let's recap. In the last hour, we've quickly stepped through the breadth of features across Power Apps. We built an app using natural language, added logic, connected to online services, and leveraged generative AI with Copilot throughout my development and end-user experience. I was able to use a combination of low-code tools and code-first IDEs to build components to be used in my app. I tested everything I built using industry-leading tools, was guided through deployment and release, and was able to get central insights across my low-code implementation, set guardrails to enable developers to work within my organization without additional risk. I was able to secure my data and apps leveraging standardized tools in Azure. I did all of this on the Power Platform, built upon unparalleled scale on Azure for scalability and resilience. In every area we've walked through today, Power Apps has released new capabilities, many of which leveraging generative AI to build higher quality, scalable apps faster on the Power Platform. In just the last year, we've enabled developers to build apps and logic using Copilot, enriched end-user experiences out of the box with intelligent recommendations and insights, brought transparency with native source code integration, and brought the right control and guardrails to admins. This comes down to three key takeaways. Power Apps drives value across the organization to the business, IT, and developers at unmatched scale. The shift to AI is already underway, and Power Apps is leading, enabling developers and end users to benefit from AI today. And lastly, Copilot, the developer experience and governance at scale, are and continue to be at the center of our roadmap. It's with this unmatched pace and scale that Power Apps remains the leader in low-code. Power Platform now enables over 33 million monthly active users,